This is Launching Your Daughter podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Now, here is today's episode. Episode 46. Well, welcome, everybody. My guest today is Elizabeth Bonet, who is a certified hypnotherapist with a PhD in clinical psychology. She's also an author, a podcaster, and a yoga teacher. Dr. Bonet helps people feel more emotionally stable, happier, and more connected to their partner, friends, and loved ones. Her specialties are hypnosis and anxiety, along with doing couples counseling and perinatal mood disorders. She has been a yoga teacher for over 15 years and was the founder of Yogafairy Prenatal Yoga, which she sold in May of 2016. Elizabeth is a single mom of 2 daughters, a cat, and a rescue dog, and I'm so excited to have her on today because I want to share with you a little bit about her work and how you can maybe incorporate some of this into your family. So thanks for being on, Elizabeth.
It's my pleasure.
So I would love it if you could talk just a little more to the listeners about what hypnosis is and what kind of got you into this work.
Oh, sure. Okay. So hypnosis is like a deeply relaxed state where you can access certain things that you want to change is how I explain it to people. So it's like, it's a little bit different from meditation, though. So meditation is a deeply relaxed state, too, but you're keeping awareness, you're trying to let go of thoughts, you're doing your breathing, versus hypnosis is a deeply relaxed state. The brain's waves are actually very similar to meditation, but you're there to make changes. And you're there to access your autonomic nervous system and make changes in that system to help calm it down. You're there to often resolve trauma. Whatever your goal is, it's about a change process versus meditation isn't. It's about an overall change process.
Okay.
Hypnosis is more about a specific change process. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. Yes. Okay, thank
great.
you.
And originally I got into it for my kids, honestly. Like my little one had developed a fear of heights, and I went looking for okay, what's going to help her? Because I was already a single mom at that point and finances were limited, and I knew I could take her to my friend who is like a phobia specialist and pay like $250 an hour, right? Mm-hmm. Or I'm like, let me try hypnosis first. This is like a shortcut. So that's what I did. And it sounded like ocean sounds to her. And I'd put it on every night and it went away. I felt like it was a miracle. Yeah. So that was really my first experience. And from there, I downloaded what I call like the Easy Kid Kit, right? Like better test taking, following instructions. I was like, this is going to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
And then I downloaded some for myself in terms of like public speaking or loving to exercise. I remember that was one that I downloaded, and I just really loved it. So then later down the road, I decided to get certified in it myself.
Well, I love that you have first and foremost, it was personal. You really didn't want your youngest daughter to continue to move forward in her life with the fear of heights. And so to find out about, oh, hey, there's a way to really help change that thought process, the behaviors that get associated with those thoughts, how to actually change this for her so she can manage this the rest of her life. And then you're like, ooh, look, I can have this for, it's public speaking, which I know is like still, I think, the number one like fear for most people, right? And so to be able to say, hey, let me incorporate that into my own life. So you then start to role model that to your daughters as well, of saying, hey, we can really use this for all of us in different situations. So I love that.
Yeah, it was great. And there's quite a bit of work that you have to do as an individual as well. So I tell my clients this, but I also tell parents this too, no, I still took her to the park. I still encouraged her to go up onto the higher place set. We still went to places where it's like, all right, let's see if you can work up to this. I was still there as a gentle support. So it's not like I didn't do anything in the background and the hypnosis did it all.
Right.
But it was definitely a help. I really felt like it was the main part and I was the support to it.
Yeah, so what you're saying is listening to the hypnosis piece or the tracks that you had playing for her as she was going to bed or at home, that didn't just cure all of it. It's let's go take, as your brain waves have shifted, as your thoughts about heights have started to shift, let's go put it into practice and go out to that playground and then work through it and then do the calming exercise as well. And whether it's the breathing or remembering what, you had learned through the hypnosis sounds to be able to continue to overcome that.
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I love how, parents can not only they learn something, but they also are a part of that process. Because I know for most of the parents I work with, they see so many of their teen daughters, especially that age, right? There's such a huge change in the brain. They're more and more anxious about various things, whether it's I've got to get into college, I've got to be the perfect daughter, I've got to be the perfect student. And it's reminding them, it's like, okay, let's slow this down just a little bit. So this may be a way that parents can help their girls kind of feel a little more in control and relax, is through maybe hypnosis.
Yes. Yeah, I highly recommend it for that. And I recommend being honest with your teen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like always, you're not trying to trick them into something, and see if they're open to it. So some may be, and some may be like, no way, forget it. Like I have a daughter who's like, no way, mom, I don't like hypnosis, like, okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Or she swears she can't meditate. I can't meditate. I can't stop the thoughts. And no matter how many times I say to her, it's not about stopping the thoughts, it's like, it doesn't get in. So I say there's other people other teens who are open to it. It's like, yeah, I want to try that. I want to see if it helps me. And if nothing else, I can learn the relaxation and how to calm myself down, how to soothe myself. I think that's a really important piece of it. Yeah. Even just as important as what you're trying to target. So let's say you get them a hypnosis or you go see a hypnotherapist to reduce anxiety or to increase self-esteem, something like that. It's also that action of like, okay, I have something that I can listen to and that I can just relax to and learn how to do that and learn how to soothe my body some here in the moment. That's natural and has no side effects, and that's really good for you. Mm-hmm. So that's how I see it.
Well, I love, too, that reminder to our parent listeners out there that you're not trying to force your daughter to do this type of treatment. It's more of meeting her where she is. And so if she has a fear of like, oh gosh, no, you're going to put me under some spell and I'm not going to do that, whatever it may be, it's more like, okay, if that doesn't work for her, if she's not open to that, then it's not going to work if you try to force her into getting that type of treatment. So I love that reminder about it. And I also like, though, that it's being able to share with her and or even just the parents itself. It's like, this is a way that's really about self-soothing. That's something, that's usually taught when we're much, much younger about how to self-soothe ourselves. And sometimes I think we can forget that as we grow up. And this is another way of like, okay, wait a minute, I actually have control over me. I can either react to these emotions or I can respond. And this would be another way to be able to go, okay, this is a moment in time. How can I calm myself? And this is, again, another avenue to be able to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. I see self-soothing as like a lifelong skill and task.
Yeah.
Right? Because as we change, as the brain changes, as our lives change, we often have to figure out a way to self-soothe that fits us in that moment. So perhaps it is yoga, perhaps it's meditation, perhaps it's hypnosis, perhaps it's going for a walk or a run, or perhaps it's sitting in nature. It's all of these things that you can offer your teen and model for them. Like, all right, there was a time last year, I think it was last year or the year before, where I decided to do 30 minutes of yoga every day without fail. Mm-hmm. That was my goal. Mm-hmm. So I began to do it at night because that's when I had the time, honestly, was at night. And so it became something that was really fun because my girls, they're always making fun of me. So they would make fun of me. And they would say, don't you have to do your yoga, Mom? Like when I would be on them about something, homework or something, they'd be like, don't you have to do I'm like, yeah, I do actually. So I would go and do
deflect.
it.
Yeah.
Totally. But then they would often join me in it. And most of the time they're just sort of rolling around the floor, laughing. But it became this method of like, okay, they're figuring out what it is on their own time, right? It's never like I'm a yoga teacher, so people assume, oh, your kids must love yoga. And it's like, no, actually, they don't. It's just something that mom does, right?
Right.
But this became something where it's like, okay, it was on their time. Yeah. It was on their volition. Like, yeah, they could join me in it for a pose or two. They could roll around on the floor and do whatever they like. And about a year or 2 years later now, my daughter will often ask me, like, my back hurts, can we do some yoga? It's like, sure. That's at her request, though. So it's never something that's forced. But my point there is that they saw me soothe myself. They saw me do something regular every day that helped me. And then later they come and ask for it. And maybe they won't do yoga for 10 years. And then 10 years from now, they'll be like, okay, I think I'll try some yoga now. Right?
Yeah.
And it's whatever is helping to soothe you as a parent, I think is going to get in there eventually. So whether they see you sit in meditation, they make fun of me for meditating too, right? We were watching a show where one of the characters would like go off and meditate randomly in the middle of like chaos. And they're like, that's totally you, Mom. And we're all laughing about it, right? But they're seeing like, yeah, in the middle of chaos, actually, you can choose to just go and sit for 5 minutes. That's it, 5 minutes. And let me just calm my breathing and take a deep breath and try to get control of myself. And eventually, my hope, right? You never know if anything you do is getting through to them. But my hope is that eventually they get that message and can do that themselves.
Well, the other thing I'm really noticing as you're talking about this, with your relationship you have with your daughters, that you allow play to be into all of this, that you're not trying to, again, step over their boundaries of like, you have to do yoga. You need to learn how to do it because that's your job, right? You're really respectful of them. Either if they want to join, great. If they don't, it's okay. They can try and deflect if they're like, I don't want to do homework. Mom, don't you have to go do that yoga thingy? Whatever, go away, Mom. That you all can really joke around and have some fun with it without be so stern about it. There's a sense of kind of playfulness with it, which I think sometimes us adults, we really forget the importance of having play in our relationships. And that I know sometimes really for the teenage girls that I work with, Mom and Dad are so serious about it, or there's not a lot of laughter and things. And so it sounds like you and your daughters, you have that, which is awesome to hear. And they do see you role modeling to them. Here's my yoga practice. Here's when I do my meditation in the moment of chaos that I can go remove myself so I'm not reacting to something. I'm going to come back and actually respond, where I have that control over me versus my emotions having control over me.
Yes, I think that's true. And play, it's definitely present, laughter, and I will tell you that is intentional. Like I heard, as a parent, you just pick things up, I feel like, from all kinds of places, right? Like sometimes you sit down and you actually read a book about something, right? About like, I don't know, brain development in teens, or how to relate to your teen, or what to do with your 11-year-old or your 8-year-old or whatever that is. But oftentimes it's just like a clip from an interview, or it's a podcast, or it's, just seeing something happen on TV. And it was some piece that ran on NPR. I don't even remember what show it was, but it was contrasting two families. And one family was full of laughter and play and joking, and the other family was very serious in the house. And I remember listening to this, and my kids were saying, our house is more like the first one. Oh, and I thought, awesome. Yeah. Like, that's great. And I'm going to make my best efforts to continue that. So even when things are tense, it's like, okay, can I crack a joke here? Or can I, put myself aside? Sometimes that's it. So of course we get into conflict, and it's like say my daughter and I are in a fight about something ongoing. Usually it's some school related thing. And right.
Uh-huh.
And she's angry. I have a choice in that moment to either be angry back, and sometimes that happens, and that's okay. But I also have the choice to say, okay, I'm angry, but can I set my anger aside here for a moment and just be present for her?
Yeah.
And even be present saying, it's okay that you're angry. We had this conversation the other day. She was angry and she had been disrespectful. And I said, hey, that's not okay. Like, it's okay that you're angry with me, but it's not okay for you to be disrespectful for me. And she said, well, what do I do to get rid of the anger? Like, she didn't like it either.
Yeah.
And so we talked about ways to do that. And in there, I always try to put some humor, like you could remain angry at me the rest of your life, but that would be really uncool, right?
Yep.
That would suck for both of us, I wouldn't get to see your grandkids. I wouldn't,
Right.
any of that, right? You play the whole scenario out. I was like, or you could start Googling anger, how to get rid of anger at your mother, right? Like something's going to come up on Google,
Absolutely.
I start quoting like the Lord's song, the internet raised us, right? I was like, you can let the internet raise you. Like that's an option here. I was like, or you can try to soften your heart. You can go think about it. You can make a gratitude list. There's a Buddhist practice called Nakon. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but it's this practice where the whole thing is to release anger, really, and to move into gratefulness. And how you release the anger is making a list of what I'm grateful for in that person. So you start with that day, and then you can go back a week, and then you can go back a month. You can make it global. So I said, you can make a list of things that you're grateful for me for. A home, cooking you dinner, letting your friends come over, just to get her started.
Yeah.
So she went and did that. And she said, well, the anger's still there. And I said, that's okay. I appreciate the list. So I said, eventually you can, when you feel that softening in your heart, when you think back and think, oh, I really don't feel so good about how I treated my mom, you can come and apologize to me then. And she said, well, what if that's years from now? And I said, that's totally fine. Like years from now is totally fine. Because it may take that long. You don't know.
Right. Well, I love so much how you gave her permission just to feel what she was feeling and also set a boundary with her about you can be angry and it's not okay to be disrespectful to me. And she recognized that. And it's at the same time, it's like, but it's not just going to, stop overnight, Mom. And it's like, and that's okay. That's, again, going back to what I talk quite a bit on this show, is that being an imperfect human being, no matter what your age is, and to be able to meet your daughter where she is and not take it personal that she's angry at you for whatever the reason is, and let her be her best human self she can be. And you are role modeling that to her as well. It's like you both had a choice in how to manage that situation. And as you said, you were aware of, again, that kind of that observing piece of you, took a step back and said, now I can let my anger run this and be angry back at her and we can totally get into a power struggle. Or I could set a limit with her about her being disrespectful, those behaviors, and still hear what she's so angry about. I love that.
Yeah. And it's not personal is written on my mirror, honestly. Like
Beautiful.
I'm not a big believer in like affirmations and all this stuff, but it's been on there for like 6 months and I read it every morning. It's not personal, zip it, and heal your own wounds. Those are the 3 things that are on my mirror, because I feel like teens especially, but kids at any age, our children, they trigger so much in us. They bring out, I think, our own wounding and often our own feeling of like, I'm not good enough. I'm doing everything wrong here. They bring up fears in us. Like, this kid's going to live in my basement and play video games their whole life. Like, what am I going to do if that happens? Are they going to make it to college? Like, who knows? So it's those fears are about us though, right? Like, so that's the third piece, is heal your own wounds. But the first piece is always, as much as possible, for me to recognize it's not personal. And I don't do that well all the time, but I try my best to do it.
Well, yeah, and that goes back to you're also human too, right? So, parent or not, there are moments that we can, when we're in a relationship, we can take things personal when it really is not. We've had a bad day. We're hungry. We didn't sleep well. Whatever that reason is, where our tolerance level for conflict is way down, then all of a sudden we're triggered because that other person ended up pushing a button they may not even know was a button, or maybe they did. And it's like, okay, here comes that reaction. So again, it's not about being the perfect human being or parent. It's about showing up where you are and then being accountable for that. So if it's like, okay, hey, I apologize that I totally, yelled at you and I was saying I didn't want to hear anything more about it. That's not true. I was having a bad moment. That was not okay. Do you accept my apology? And let me try this again, where I really want to hear what is going on for you right now.
Yes. Yeah. That would be awesome, right? Yeah. To be able to do that all the time. And you can. I mean, the other thing, I work with a lot of moms. Sometimes dads will come in too. But the thing I tell them is, particularly younger moms, meaning like, they just had their kids. They're not necessarily younger in age.
Right.
But I say, like, perfection is not the goal here. Repair is the goal. Being able to go back and say, I'm sorry, let's start again. Let's try that again, whether they're 2 or they're 12.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, what can I do to repair this? And that's also a skill, right? Like the Gottman couples therapy, Gottmans will teach that as a skill, repair. Does the couple know how to repair in the relationship? And it's the same with our kids. Do we know how to repair in the relationship? And I believe that if you're present for that goes way further than perfection. And honestly, it's my own therapist who taught me that. Like, repair is the goal here, not perfection. Because forget perfection. It's just never going to happen.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. I love it. I want to kind of switch this just a touch, but you were just hitting upon it, right? It's how the mindfulness practice that you created, whether that was through your yoga practice or now as a hypnotherapist, how has that helped you? One, I know you're a business owner, so you're an entrepreneur and a single mom of 2. How has that actually helped you over the years of raising your girls and being able to maintain your own business? You've shared a little bit about there's times where, again, your yoga, that you've done for the 30-day practice, but how are those skills really helped you as well, and to continue to role model those skills for your girls?
They've been really important. Like, I can't even tell you how important they've been because, well, I'm going to try though, right? Okay. Right? Actually, I can tell you. I take that back. It's this sense of, one, it's doing something for myself. So I'm very clear about that. And that may be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's a meditation while you're parked in the car before you're picking the kids up from school, right? It may happen there. I'm really big on car meditation, right? It may be like when you first wake up and you're just lying in bed, like you don't even have to sit up, just lie in bed and do it. But what I'm clear on is that it's time for me, and it helps calm everything down. It has helped change my reactivity. So I used to be much more reactive. And I heard someone say once that was from growing up in Texas too. I don't know, but apparently a lot of people are reactive in Texas. But I live in Florida, and I have for like 20 years now, over 20 years. So for me, it's about being able to pause, and that's what it gives me. And when I don't do it, I really notice the difference. So there's been periods of my life where I didn't meditate for months at a time, and then I would do it a little bit, and then I'd stop again. But in the last year, I've really tried to do a daily meditation. And again, that may be 5 minutes, it may be 20 if I have it. But even those 5 minutes, I'm committed to the 5 minutes, helps change over time my own reactivity, my own ability to pause and to take a breath and to say, okay, what can I do here? How can I respond versus react? And it's also this place that I find soothing, really. Like, let me go and just sit 4 or 5 minutes and breathe and try to let these thoughts go. And often what'll happen is new thoughts will come in, right? You'll get solution to problems. Those kind of thoughts will pop up. And really the goal of most meditation is to try to get to that place where you're not thinking so much, but on the path there, often creative thoughts will pop up to you. So I really believe that that's okay too. And there's all kinds of different practices and different forms of meditation, all kinds of stuff. But my form includes that creativity and makes it okay. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I get to that place where I can just breathe and be present and not have so many thoughts coming up. So I think that answered your question.
Yeah, it absolutely did. Because what I'm also hearing, not only does the mindfulness really, if I remember correctly, it's really increasing the gray matter in our brain, which helps with us being more responsive versus reacting when our thoughts pop through or those emotions come on really strong. So that daily practice, whatever that looks like, whether it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, you're intentionally creating that space. The other thing I wanted to really acknowledge and remind all parents out there, it's about that self-care. Wherever you can grab some me time is so important. Because again, our future girls, right, the tweens and the teens, all these girls that are growing up, it's showing them, both mom and or dad, taking that time for themselves so they know it's okay for them to do. I know for our society, we still can sometimes struggle as females saying, oh no, we've got to be all, do all, and it's not okay to take some downtime. And you need to, because if you're on E, you don't have anything else to give. And the odds of you getting into a power struggle or getting into a conflict goes up because you're just exhausted. So I love that for you, it's like, hey, if I grab it in the car before I'm doing pickup duty or something, that's okay. It's where you are and you meet yourself there and give yourself permission to have some of that me time, that quiet time.
Yes, absolutely. And they compare, I don't remember the exact number, but it's like 15 minutes or 10 to 20, somewhere in there. They compare that to getting like 3 hours of sleep.
Oh, wow.
So yes, right? Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
So for me, I tend to think, okay, 3 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep. Like, do you want 3 hours of sleep? I do. All right. Then just set your timer for 10 minutes and be done with it,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely in the self-care realm.
Definitely. Well, I'm curious, as we start to wrap up here, is there any other piece of advice or maybe books that you sometimes recommend to parents, whether they've got a young daughter or an older daughter, anything that you recommend to them that helps really encourage them, support them, where they feel more confident and or help their daughters feel more confident?
Definitely. There is a book called The Child Whisperer by Carol Tuttle, Tuttle. That changed my entire parenting. I read it when my kids were little. I still reference it. It goes from 0 to 18. It'll change your relationship with adults as well in your life, relatives, family of origin, partners. I really believe strongly in the book. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. It's called The Child Whisperer. And her real theory is that we are each the whisperer of our own child. Like we know our child the best. And she has this, it's a little woo-woo, but not too much, I think. She has these energy patterns, like all our children have energy patterns. Mm-hmm. So, one is a little calmer and likes to chill out. Another one loves to go do activities. She needs a run at the park before she can go to sleep, whatever that is, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So she takes those energy patterns and puts them into these 4 different categories and then says something profound. I think it's not about it's not just about you and your parenting style. It's about finding what works for your child the best and identifying your own style and saying, okay, where do these match up and where do I need to adjust? So it's finding, how do I adjust to them? How do I know them? How do I make sure that they're getting what they need, while also knowing that I need things too, like knowing my own energy patterns and knowing how do I take care of myself around them, recognizing them and seeing how to mesh those together. So she's really the only book I've read about parenting that plays places a big emphasis on the parent as well, like knowing yourself and knowing. So it's not just about, oh, do this, this, and this with your child. It's very much like, all right, you know that you have this energy pattern, and when you go out shopping, you need to go very quickly and everything through. And then your child needs to take their time and slow down and try on every single item. So it's like, all right, I know, let's do this, and then we're going to move on, setting those kind of boundaries around your child and around yourself so that you're both happy. That's her big emphasis. You both need to be happy. So that's been a huge influence in my life. I suggest to anyone, give it a read. It's a very quick read to thumb through. Actually, it's a big, thick book, but you can just flip through it very, very easily.
Excellent. Well, I'll definitely have that in the show notes as well, so people can get the name and the title again, so that'll be there for them. So I also want to make sure that I ask you, how can people get a hold of you and the name of your podcast if they would like to hear a little more about you as well?
Sure. Thank you. My whole hub is drlizhypnosis.com. So it's DRLIZ hypnosis.com. And they can go there and see more about me. They can hear the podcast there. They can look at the downloads. There's a couple too that they can buy, or there's some free ones they can get from joining the newsletter. So that's the hub. The podcast is called Hypnotize Me, and it's awesome. I love it. It's all about hypnosis. And a lot of it is stories. So it's not just hypnosis every time. But there are definitely a couple of free hypnosis that I throw in from time to time, or free meditations, really. And they can go and listen and subscribe. It's wonderful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, sharing your own the practice you've done for you yourself as a mom, but also what it is that how you've helped your daughters, whether it's been through the role modeling, the mindfulness, or getting them involved in some hypnosis, especially for your youngest one, because she was more open to it, and really helping them manage their own anxieties or fears and emotions, that they have that to use when they want it, or if they want it, and that you're also showing that to them. So again, thank you so much for being on, Elizabeth. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. You're doing such a wonderful work. I love your podcast. I listen to it all the time and think, oh, that's great. That let me remember that, and let me remember this. And so thank you so much for the work you do as well.
Oh, well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and I invite you to go out to launchingyourdaughter.com for the show notes and to sign up for my newsletter. This way you can stay informed of different parenting tips and some upcoming events I have going on. Thank you for listening to Launching Your Daughter with Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist. For more information or to stay up to date, go to launchingyourdaughter.com. You can sign up for my email list or join my Facebook group. Thank you.